Good evening and welcome. We'll call the meeting of the Cleveland County Board of Education for Monday, April 11th to order. And first off, we have Pastor Doug Hankins from First Baptist Church will provide our invocation.
Would you all pray with me? God, we give thanks for a robust educational system in Cleveland County that helps to form our students, that helps to shape them with a common set of values to help them to be productive members of society. We thank you for the various infrastructures that are all integrated, that are represented here today. We thank you for this board and for the participants who've come. We give thanks towards the end of this school year for administrators, for teachers, for all those who are involved in helping to shape our children, for they are not only the future, they are the present. And so for all these things, we give thanks. It's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Our Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Hunt. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, I'd like to recognize any guests that we may have with us. Do we have any principals or assistant principals in the audience? I saw one. Thank you. Do we have any teachers or teachers' assistants with us? Thank you for being here. Any NCAE representatives? And I haven't seen any elected officials. All right, thank you everyone for being here. I'd like to recognize Ms. Benfield for some special recognition.
Good evening. Tonight I'm pleased to recognize 4 of our Cleveland County School students and 2 of our staff who placed in this year's North Carolina Career Development Poetry and Art Contest. We have students and staff who participate in this contest every year. This was the 56th annual contest, and it was held in February during Career Development Month. This year we had 6 winners, and I'd like to call their names. First of all, in the poetry division, 2nd place was Christian Trejo from Cleveland Early College High School. Christian. And the 3rd place winner in the poetry division was Jasmine Anthony from Cleveland Early College High School. And in the art division, 1st place, Azaria Surratt from Shelby High School. And I think Azaria placed last year too, didn't you? A couple of these up here, I believe, did. Also in the art division, 3rd place, Jada Lawrence from Shelby High School. In art, there are 2 categories, and there's also an adult division, and we had 2 of our staff to win 1st place. Both of them were 1st place winners. Kenny Walker, who's the art teacher at Shelby High School. And also 1st place in the 2nd category is Rhonda Branch, and she is our CTE Curriculum and Instruction Coordinator. And each of these previously received a certificate as well as a cash award. So they have been recognized by the North Carolina Career Development Association. Their work is on display at the entrance, right where you come in, right next to the front door. If you did not see their work on your way in, please make sure you check that out on your way out. So I just want to congratulate all of you. Thank you for participating. Some of you have participated several years now, so we're very proud of you. If you'll just shake hands and then pause for a picture.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you, students, for a job well done. Next, we have adoption of the agenda. What's the pleasure of the board?
So moved.
Hold on just a second. Motion by Mr. Humphries. I heard a second down this, Mr. Hunt. Any questions or discussion?
Yes, I have a question for the attorney, please.
Does it relate to the agenda?
Yes, it does.
Okay.
I have a question. How did a letter that came to me personally from our chair personally become part of the minutes and put out on public display, or they can ask for public Freedom of Information Act or whatever you want to call that? And when...
Hold on. I'm going to have to call that out of order because that's not part of the agenda.
Yes, it is.
It's part of the minutes. We can discuss that when the minutes are approved or not, but it's not part of the agenda. We need to vote on the agenda or amend the agenda.
I'd like to amend the agenda.
Well, I think he's saying the agenda is for today's meeting. The minutes we'll talk about in just a minute. I'll stay close.
Okay.
All right, we've got a motion and a second for the agenda. Any further questions or discussion? Those in favor of the agenda, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 8-1. Next, we have public participation. We do have, I believe, 5 speakers. That fits within our normal time, so we'll proceed on. Our first speaker is Tarika Dennis.
April is Autism Awareness Month. For those who may not be familiar with autism, it is a developmental disorder of variable severity that is characterized by difficulty in social interaction, communication, and by restrictive or repetitive patterns of thought and behavior. My daughter Aubrey, who is 8 years old, has autism, and what that means for her is that she views and experiences the world completely differently than you or I. Her way of thinking and communicating is extremely diverse, and not only is that okay, it's beautiful. She has honestly taught me so much, not only as a parent, but as a human being in general. Her kind nature and fearlessness to try new experiences never ceases to astound me. When she loves you, there is no doubt, because it can take up to a year just to build that trust and relationship. As a mom, my worst fear has always been that something bad would happen to her and she wouldn't be able to tell me about it. On March 21st, that fear became a cruel reality. I have brought pictures that were taken on the day of the incident and also of the marks that still remain today. Aubrey was severely mishandled, to put it lightly, at a time when she was overstimulated and overwhelmed. This action was taken by a substitute teacher at the time, and our principal, Dr. Green, took the necessary steps to ensure that specific individual would not be back in the classroom. As I do appreciate the quick action, it really opened my eyes to so much more. I saw the need for change, and a lot of it. I think it's important to also focus, plan, and take action. This traumatic event that befell my daughter will not be forgotten, nor is it excusable. But how can we do better and make a difference, you may ask? Well, we can start by being proactive right now with our general safety. I'm asking the board to install cameras in the halls, entrances of not only Falston Elementary, but all Cleveland County schools. It is a system that not only could protect students, but teachers as well. We also need to give our school resource officers and educators access to extensive de-escalation training programs. My hope is that we can start with these two things and begin our journey to make a difference, a genuine, true difference. It's our duty to now recenter and refocus our attention to our special kids to ensure that they are not just surviving in school, but that they thrive. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to next month's meeting.
Thank you. Next is Marge Hooper.
Some of you got this by messenger, but I'll give you copies now. On April 2nd at the 10th District Convention, I spoke with Michael Watley at the North Carolina GOP convention, and I showed him this palm card that you were handing out at our Cleveland County GOP convention on March 22nd. You're an elected official. An elected official will not campaign against another candidate during a primary. An elected official will not show partiality towards one candidate over another candidate during a primary. You have showed partiality on this palm card. I've enlarged this for our audience by underlining the typed names in bold and italicizing the names of the 4 candidates that you have endorsed, and you are not to do that. You show such disdain and absolute hatred, it's evident towards Danny Blanton. Republicans don't do this. Democrats don't do this. Communists do. They poison their opponents and people that they want to get out of their way. So Danny Blanton, don't drink anything that he gives you. It does not have to end like this. You can acknowledge what you have done, this mean, hateful, disdainful things that you have done, and ask for forgiveness.
I'm going to put a stop to that. You're talking about campaign ethics. It has nothing to do with the school board activities. So,
Yes, it does. You're an elected official. You're not supposed to do this.
subject or you'll be removed.
Look at that. We're supposed to be quiet and let him do whatever he wants
You
and
have another
act.
subject to address.
You cannot act however you want to out in public. With such disdain, you cannot do this. Why don't you ask for forgiveness from Danny Blanton and say, forgive me. I still have 40 minutes, 40 seconds. You need to ask for forgiveness for all the hateful things that you've done to Danny Blanton. Holy Week, you can ask for forgiveness. Holy Week.
Mr. Williams, I've already ruled from the chair. Please don't interrupt the meeting. The third speaker is Ms. Nanette Linhart.
Good afternoon, Board Chairman and members of the board, superintendent, attorneys, administration. My name is Nanette Linhart, and let me see if I can get through this. On May 2016, 2017, House bill, it talks about consolidated school district. So I assume that means my taxes are going to Cleveland County Schools. Is that correct? On my vehicle registration, it shows that my vehicle taxes are also paid toward consolidated school district, and I assume that's Cleveland County Schools. So, my next concern is a voice message that I got from Attorney Jonathan Sink, which references probably the same issue that Miss Marge Hooper, she showed. Let me get my glasses on. So on Monday, March 28th, after our March 26th CCGOP convention, I received a phone call, a voice message from Jonathan Sink stating to me that he is counsel for the party, which is understood to be the CCGOP party, and counsel for the Board of Education. His voice message was 1 minute and 17 seconds as follows. Well, hey, Nanette, it's Jonathan Sink. I hope you're doing well. It's about 6 o'clock on Monday evening. I just wanted to call you and ask you if you had told Robert Williams anything about me allegedly passing out cards for Robert Queen or whoever at the convention. I did not pass out any campaign materials, including those little cards that I saw a picture of. But anyway, I've been really disappointed at Marge. Well, I just want to mention, you were the one giving them out, sir.
It doesn't matter what I do in my private time. You need to move on.
You represent the board policy. I need to ask you, the board policy is 7720, and it references the board chairman and the superintendent and political. So there's a video out there. Okay. Thank you for allowing me time to somewhat speak to the public.
Next speaker is Brandon Bridges, or Bridger.
Howdy, my name is Brandon Bridges, and I've been a Cleveland County resident for all of my life. I've lived in Shelby for almost all of my life, save for a couple of years in Kings Mountain. I've worked in Concord, I've worked in Charlotte. I travel for work now, but I'm proud to say that I'm a member of Cleveland County. I like living around here. I want to do what I can. I want to do what I can do to help whatever I can do. I have my own small business and try to do a little bit of work on the side. I pay my taxes. And I see all kinds of stuff, and regardless of what your political affiliation is, or how you feel, or what you're doing, or what you're not doing, I don't envy any of you for being on the school board with everything that goes on around here. It just seems like every time I come around here, there's so much going on that don't have nothing to do with our kids, and it's just very surprising to me that that's what all these meetings end up consisting of, whether you're for this person or that person. And I try to follow on Facebook. I try to follow on what people, I try to ask different people. I ask them what's going on. I ask people that are inside the school system. And a lot of people say they're scared to say anything about it that work in the school system because they're afraid of retaliation. Against who, I don't know. You know, I'm not going to come up here and name names or call people out individually. But one of the posts that come up most recently is about the school system's lunch menu at the schools in Cleveland community, or the Cleveland County and Cleveland County schools, and it compared them to Greenville County schools, and there was a very stark difference between the food quality that you see between those two school systems. And in a county that we have so much pride in our agriculture, you can go to Burns High School and go 2 or 3 miles down the road in any direction and find a farm of some kind. And I know that the logistics of just going up to somebody and saying, well, can I buy something from you to feed our kids? I know it don't work like that. But for a county that has so much pride and so much history in agriculture, I think we should be able to do a lot better than we're doing right now for our kids in terms of what they have to eat, especially with the poverty line being as low as it is, and some of these kids having nothing to eat except for what they get at school. And I started to look into it myself whenever I came across that article. I was looking at it. I said, well, somebody's going to have something to say, and it's going to have something to do with the fact that we have a lot smaller tax base around here than Greenville does. But I couldn't find any of that information, and I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to bring it up to the school board, because that's what y'all's job is. Y'all's job is to figure out what to do about matters like that and make a difference with it. That's what you were elected to do, and I would hope that you would take what I've had to say into account and look into what we can do about getting some better food for these kids in our schools. That's all I've got, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And the last speaker is Claire Mangione.
I wanted to say thank you tonight to Mr. Queen, Mr. Glover, and Dr. Fisher on behalf of the Shelby Neighbors for Cleveland County Schools that I'm representing tonight, because they met with us to discuss their thought processes and reasonings for the closures of Graham and Marion Elementary Schools. While many Inner Circle folks did know about this idea for quite some time, average kids and parents and neighbors like us were shocked by the closure vote because so little information and emotion seemed to be publicly shared about the decision. Offering us the chance to hear actual information, though, being allowed to ask questions and then to also receive responses to those questions made an important difference to us. We appreciate that your renewed commitment to improve communication and transparency has led to the planning of community information sessions where other neighbors who weren't at the table can also hear the reasons why you made these decisions. That better? We appreciate that one of your reasons for closing these two schools was the equitable distribution of increased resources for Shelby's own students. This would be good news for all students, and as concerned citizens, we are anxious and excited to see the benefits of that action. Because my neighbors and I do believe you care about the long-term future of the Shelby zone, we ask tonight that you hold off on selling the Graham property. That property has great potential, and we want Cleveland County Schools to benefit from what it could be. We also ask tonight that you deeply consider your Marion neighbors as you seek to sell that piece of the community. We understand how you feel and why it must be sold at this point. But we beg you to not just sell it to the highest bidder without regard to how that will affect the people you represent. I appeal to you, Mr. Glover and Mr. Chairman Queen, specifically to just help us in that regard. Finally, about Marion, we ask that it not go to a private or charter school. We believe in protecting the high quality of public education in our county, just as we assume you do, otherwise you wouldn't have run for the board. We just don't want anything for our public school representatives to do anything that perpetuates the idea that a kid can't get a good education in a public school and that they'd be better off in a private or charter. Thank you again for valuing our concerns truly and making the effort to build bridges with your neighbors.
Thank you. Next, we have approval of the minutes. There are 3 sets of minutes. First is the March 14th business and closed session minutes. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Hunt. Second by Ms. Green. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor of the minutes of the March 14th business and closed session, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 8-1. Next, we have approval of the minutes of the general account of the March 14th closed session. What's the pleasure of the board? Motion by Mr. Hunt. Second by Mr. Taylor. Any questions or discussion?
Yes.
Mr. Blanton?
I want to go back to my question to the attorney concerning the letter that was between me and Mr. Queen. I wanted to discuss it because it had our colleagues. That's what it said in the letter. but I was not allowed to discuss it or show the letter. So there was no letter presented.
And I do want to caution us, since we are talking about something that happened in closed session, if we need to get into the weeds of it, we need to remove this discussion to a closed session.
Time out.
Yes, sir.
They didn't have no problem for it getting turned out to the public. Why did my letter, by it being in closed session then, why did it get to where it was opened up to the public?
When Mr. Shores announced the statutes to let us enter into closed session, we enumerated that it was for a personnel decision and also for attorney update on matters of litigation. Before we go into a closed session, we would have to enumerate what we're going in there for, and that was not on the list.
Okay, I've been told by Mr. Chairman when we had a closed session that if I had something I needed to bring up, that I could bring it up. So that's not a true statement then, is that correct?
I'm not sure I follow.
I was told that if I needed to bring something up, if it's concerning personnel, because there's personnel names in that letter, and our colleagues in that letter. So I was not going to bring it up publicly and announce anybody's name publicly. So I have been told, and you can ask him, has he ever told me that right here in front of everybody, that I could bring up in closed session? So I did. And then I was told that I couldn't talk about it. I could not discuss it. And so how did it become to where it could be knowledge to be shared?
So
Well, I can respond to that. What you were told is if you wanted to add something to closed session, you would have to amend the motion before we go into closed session. Everything that's discussed in closed session must be part of the motion. General Statute 143-318 lists 10 different reasons for entering closed session, and discussion of that letter did not meet any of the 10 qualifiers.
When you're talking about personnel,
We're not personnel, we're board members.
there was personnel's names in there too, because they was blacked out when it was give out to the public and asked for that letter publicly. Who give the letter then to make it to where it could go public? Who give that letter?
So there's a statute under North Carolina law, Chapter 132, that defines what a public record is. And so long as a document is made or received within the course of business or between board members and there's a nexus to the public business that's being conducted, then if a record is requested.
I didn't give it to nobody.
Ma'am,
So, by my understanding, they've been,
Hey, Mr. Bland, what's the latest question?
the latest question is, who give the letter? Because I didn't give the letter.
No, the letter was referenced in the minutes, which were then produced to the public as part of the legal full accounting, accurate accounting of the closed session minutes. Now, obviously, there was a personnel discussion in closed session that we can't talk about right now. I know you're not asking about that. But when that went into the minutes that were then released to the public, that is how the public found out that that letter existed.
Okay.
And by the contents of that letter, meeting what Leah, Ms. Sink just said, it is by definition under Chapter 132 of the North Carolina General Statutes a public record. And so therefore, they found out through the minutes, we had 3 requesters. The 3 requesters requested that specific letter that Chairman Queen sent to Mr. Blanton in his capacity as school board chairman and your capacity as a school board, member, elected official. And so that's how it became a public document that was released.
Released, okay. How, before the closed meeting or the don't we supposed to vote on most anything in closed session for things to be released and then it becomes public document?
Can you rephrase your question, please, sir?
When we talk about stuff in closed session, that was considered as closed session because that document wouldn't have been mentioned.
Okay, so the difference between what is released and what is not released from closed session is...
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So the contents, say if we were evaluating somebody with a board contract or something like that, or any personnel information, the North Carolina general statutes do preclude those. They render those confidential personnel information. That does not apply to board members. Y'all are not school board employees, contrary to popular misconception.
Right.
So any type of school employee evaluation discussion, oh, he did great, she did awful, he did awful. We can't get into those specifics. But with regard to, yes, there was mention of, by you, respectfully, it's just factual, in the closed session that was documented by Ms. Bridges in the minutes, as she always takes. The law requires a full and accurate accounting of what took place in both open and closed. That's what was put into the minutes. That's how the three requesters and the rest of the public who saw that in board docs knew that that letter existed. There in the wake of that is when the letter itself was requested.
Okay.
And as Ms. Sink, Leah just said, Chapter 130.
Well,
Chapter 132 is what renders that a public document because it's made or received by a public entity, a public school, a member thereof, and it does have a nexus as it relates to board business.
Okay, well, since there are three people already knows it, and I guess they're going to tell everybody, why don't I just tell some people? Let me tell a little bit of my side. Can I share that?
No, it's not part of approving the minutes. Right now, we've got minutes on the docket to approve or not approve.
Well, it's that letter quoted that of all the colleagues, each one of these board members, that he called and told them that he was going to send me a letter. But in the letter, it shows that the colleagues wanted him to send me the letter. And that's each one of them. Now, does each one of them...
It has nothing to do with the minutes.
It has to do with the public getting that letter. Yes, it does.
But that has no, right now, we have on our agenda to approve minutes of previous meetings, and this discussion has nothing to do with the minutes. We can
Yes, it does.
We can add information, we can add something to the agenda if someone so moves, otherwise we need to move on.
So council will be just over there if there's any more questions. Thank you.
Any further discussion on...
Yes, I'd like to amend the minutes then. And for it to be a discussion.
Mr. Chairman, we have to dispose on this first, and then we can amend the minutes.
You cannot amend minutes to add discussion. That motion is out of order.
That's the reason I wanted to do it during the agenda, and you wouldn't allow me, and you told me I had to go to the minutes.
Well, we're gonna have this meeting in good order and discipline, and sooner or later you've got to learn what the rules are and how to use those.
Okay, all I want is the public and the people.
We're moving on with the vote. Any further discussion from the rest of the board
I
on the
want
minutes?
the people to know the truth.
Those in favor of the minutes for the closed session of March 14th, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 8-1. Next, we have approval of the minutes of the March 25th work session. What's the pleasure of the board?
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Glover, second by Mr. Fitch. Any discussion on the March 25th work session minutes? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? Carries 9-0. And just for information, the minutes for that session are basically broken into our committee reports for this meeting, and you'll be hearing those shortly. So, Mr. Shores, you have finance and personnel.
Yes. Thanks for the printout, because my computer just died. So if it wasn't for the printout, I would be guessing. This is a reference to our work session on March 25th, 2022. Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Dan Karpinski, reviewed the current draft budget and answered questions from board members. Vice Chair Joel Shores said that all board members should serve at some point on the Finance and Personnel Committee because of the complexity of the budget process. Federal, state, and local oversight of all funds makes financial operations very complicated. Board members discussed projections for historical data and the reimbursement of funds for charter schools. Mr. Karpinski explained funds by purpose code and discussed the state's required raises, retirement increases, and the rising cost of benefits. Dr. Fisher provided some clarification on current ESSER funding. 11:15 a.m., Exceptional Children Executive Director Ms. Wendy Fitch shared a draft of a plan for the recruitment and retention of special education teachers. After some discussion, board members agreed by consensus to move forward with the program. Dr. Fisher briefly described plans for creation of performance-based systems for awarding extraordinary work by district employees, as well as a program for providing experience credit opportunities for qualifying non-certified employees. He said Dr. Shaw and Dr. Brian Hunnell are working with Hospice Foundation through the CC Educational Foundation to create an employee recognition program offering incentives and recognitions at no cost to the district. Dr. Fisher noted that Cleveland County Schools has the 7th lowest teacher turnover rate in the state. Dr. Fisher said the teachers' working condition survey results will be available at the beginning of the summer.
All right, we have 2 action items under Finance and Personnel. First is the 2022-2023 proposed budget that was discussed during our workshop on the 25th. Just as additional information, we do have to send a proposed budget to the county commissioners by May 15th. Couple highlights out of the budget. This does include additional teacher supplements. There will be another 2% to get to 7.75%. Also, the budget looks somewhat artificially inflated this year. The ESSER money and grants for the auditoriums are included. So we basically went from 155 million, give or take a year, to about 259. So that is somewhat artificially high. We need a motion to approve the proposed budget.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Fitch, second by Mr. Hunt. Any questions on that, on the budget?
Yes.
Mr. Blanton?
Did we ever find out if we got our contract signed, our money and our finances for what we did sell?
Yes.
Okay, we got it all done. Have we got our money, or do we not get it till that year passes?
Which one are you talking about?
Both of them.
There's Central Schools
Yes.
one, and the Grover House property?
Well, the Central School.
Central School, the contract has been signed, and per the contract, there's 12 months for our maintenance crew to get out and to find something for a partnership with children.
All right. Okay.
So the money doesn't change hands until closing.
All right. I don't know if this is the proper time. You can call me out of order. Why didn't all the board members know about this meeting about Marion School and stuff in Graham?
That's out of order, has nothing to do with the budget.
Oh, okay. Well, it just won't be sometime because there's going to be finances there.
Any other questions on the proposed budget? Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That carries 8-1. Next, we have the personnel report. That includes the sub list and the normal personnel report. What's the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'll have to recuse myself.
Okay.
Motion to approve personnel report.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Hunt, second by Mr. Glover. Those in favor of the personnel report as presented, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed? That's 7-1 with 1 recusal. Next, we have educational programs. That's Mr. Humphries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we met during the workshop, and Dr. Fisher presented a technology recommendation to purchase Chromebooks with the ESSER funds, and this particular set of ESSER funds has a sunset date on it, which is coming up. Dr. Hunnell said the district is very pleased with Trafera, the company, and its services. This is a state procurement company. The Board of Education voted unanimously, 8-0, to approve the Chromebooks purchase as presented. Dr. Fisher said the district is looking for more book sponsors to keep the community involved in reading. The recent PALS Partners Align for Literacy Success event was very well received, and the district looks forward to continued success in growing that program. The Board of Education voted unanimously, 8-0, to renew Reading Horizons at a cost of $83,000 as presented. Referring to the March 14th instructional update, Dr. Fisher noted that the district still has work to do for every school to meet and exceed growth, and briefly discussed the EVOS numbers. The district strives to increase the four-year graduation rate to exceed 90%. Dr. Fisher discussed the successes of Cleveland Innovations, the push for employment initiatives, and the goals to meet or exceed the state average for ACT proficiency. Communities and schools had expressed interest in helping with the before-after school care services. Dr. Pless said Cleveland County Schools would no longer provide morning services. He stated only 31 out of 14,000 plus students were using those, and only 8 of 53 parents supported a pay increase to be able to maintain that. Mr. Pless said participation dwindled over the past few years, and the district had to fund the program last year and this year to keep it functioning. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Humphers. And Operations Committee also met during the March 25th work session. Dr. Wampler and Maintenance Director Chip Childers presented the capital projects report for the board's information and discussed the McMillan, Pasden Smith Comprehensive Facility Assessment progress, stating that the final report should be available in May. Attorney Leah Sink reported on the signing of the Central School contract and that both parties agreed on a 12-month time frame to allow maintenance to relocate and for decisions to be made concerning Partnership for Children. The Board of Education approved the City of Kings Mountain easement as presented and approved the surplus declaration list of vehicles. The Board of Education also approved the request for purchase of a new school bus, and the board approved the maintenance surplus declaration. Chip Childers stated the Kings Mountain Middle School roofing project exceeds the board policy threshold of $75,000 and needed approval. The Board of Education voted unanimously, 8-0, to approve the Kings Mountain Middle roofing project. As a point of information, Mr. Childers mentioned the Freshman Academy needed $30,000 worth of roofing, and that was presented as information only. Mr. Pless updated the board on the Shelby Zone reorganization plans and stated bus routes are under development with input from parents and school personnel. Dr. Fisher said Mr. Childers and the maintenance staff are working on the logistics for moving. Dr. Fisher provided copies of Policy 9300 concerning the naming of the new Shelby Zone Elementary School. Board members discussed creating a committee separate from the transition committee. The superintendent was instructed to form a separate committee for the naming of the school and for the committee to report to the Board of Education. Dr. Wampler and Mr. Childers updated the board on the heating and air needs at the high schools and the work being done by CMTA. The district will use designated ESSER funds for the heating and air projects. The bids process will begin in April. Dr. Fisher, Dr. Wampler, and Mr. Childers reported on the grant funds for the auditoriums. We have applied for $50 million in grants. The decisions regarding grant recipients will be available tomorrow. So everyone say their prayers tonight that we get awarded that grant. The board may need to hold a special called meeting regarding the auditoriums projects once the grants decisions have been made. And the board will wait to approve a construction contract until funding has been approved. Mr. Taylor asked if the approved American Legion improvements to Shelby High School baseball stadium would affect activities on campus, and work on the enhancements are scheduled to begin after graduation. Board members discussed the high cost of playground equipment, and it's becoming more difficult for schools to pay for those out of their local monies. Board members discussed holding regular work sessions in the spring and fall in order to keep all board members updated. Mr. Glover said the Operations Committee is the most active and generates the most questions from the public, and appreciated being kept apprised of decisions and activities. We have one action item in addition. This was not discussed during the work session. It has become available since then. That is architect selection for the press box project. So we have Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. The 2021 Appropriations Act passed by the General Assembly this fall awarded Cleveland County Schools a construction grant of $4.9 million to be used for athletic upgrades. Included in those upgrades were the replacement of press boxes at Burns, Crest, and Kings Mountain High School. As we begin working on the specifics of that grant request and to move forward with the expenditure of those dollars and to the renovation and upgrade of our athletic facilities, board policy directs the superintendent to recommend to the board architects for services. This obviously, with the amount of money that is in this grant and the anticipated cost of doing the field or press boxes at Burns, Crest, and Kings Mountain, that does fit that threshold where the board would need to approve that architect. Late winter, Cleveland County Schools released and mailed out a request for qualifications for architectural services for athletic projects at our traditional high schools. Included those new press boxes at Burns, Crest, and Kings Mountain High School. We set a date to accept these requests for qualifications of March 30th. We did receive one request for qualification from Holland Hamrick, and we recommend to the board tonight that the board select Holland Hamrick as the architect to work through with these field houses at Burns, Crest, and Kings Mountain High School. Be glad to try to answer any questions the board may have.
Any questions for Dr. Fisher? Mr. Blank?
So this was put out everywhere to, for people that would be interested in putting a bid in?
It was on our website. It was mailed out to the companies that traditionally bid for architectural services. We mailed those out to local firms that traditionally bid.
Did we post it to where anybody could come in and put a bid in?
That information is made available, yes, sir. We discussed it in a committee meeting, but that information was on the website under our RFQs. It's my understanding that information was on the website.
Right.
Any other questions?
I just can't believe nobody.
And that was, Mr. Blanton, that was mailed out to, again, the local firms that traditionally bid on these projects.
Why don't we just mail out to the different firms, just mail it out, and if they want to respond?
We did. Okay. We mailed out to the local firms that traditionally bid for those projects.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion we approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Glover, second by Mr. Hunt. Any further discussion or questions?
Can I ask just one question?
Yes, Mr.
Are we within our purchasing guidelines for that by submitting or requesting the qualifications when we come back? So we are within the legal parameters.
Yes, Mr. Taylor, and we talked about that with legal counsel, and that question did come up, that we do not have to. If we would bid this out on a bid thing, we would have to get 3 bids. But with this, it does not require us to have more than one response.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Those in favor of selecting Holland and Hamrick as the architects for the press box?
Yeah, I got another question.
What's that?
You mean to tell me that we do not have to put it out for 3 bids, and we're talking about $4 million?
It's a request for qualifications. Yeah. You're not required, you're only required to have.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, that actually falls under the Minnie Brooks Act. Is that correct? Yes. Okay. So, yeah, that.
All right,
Well, what did we pass a rule for that we put bids out if it's over $90,000 then?
But Ms. Blunt, it's 2 different things. The bids, and then this is not a bid. This is an RFQ.
Well, money's money in my book.
And the law is the law.
Okay.
We have a motion by Mr. Glover and a second by Mr. Hunt to approve Holland and Hamrick for the press box projects. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. Any opposed?
I want us to start putting bids out.
Next is policy report from Mr. Humphries.
Very good.
Get 100.
The policy committee met on March the 15th at noon. Dr. Fisher provided an update for the committee on reporting student absences to parents. This update was in reference to discussion from an earlier policy committee meeting. Dr. Fisher reminded the committee that the district calls parents when students are absent from school. The automated call generally goes out around 6 p.m. Dr. Fisher also explained that parents can log into the Power School Parent Portal and get real-time information on student attendance. A parent can see if a student is absent as soon as the absence is entered by the school personnel. Cleveland County Schools encourages all parents to access the parent portal. The committee reviewed policy 4310, Code of Student Conduct. Several wording recommendations were made to the policy. The committee discussed damage to school property, cell phones, and reportable offenses in detail. The proposed edits to the policy were captured and will be considered at the next meeting. The committee also discussed policy 4235, which is head lice, and policy 7900, which is resignations. A recommendation was made to add communication to the policy committee, and this will be discussed in the next meeting also. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Humphries. Safety Committee is Mr. Fitch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Safety Committee also met at the workshop. The Safe Schools grant expires June the 30th, and the district plans to encumber the funding for purchase of cameras for elementary schools, high schools, and Turner Point Academy. Dr. Fisher said the wait time for receiving the cameras may extend past the June 30th deadline. The Board of Education unanimously 8-0 approved the purchase of cameras. The Safety Committee is charged with creating an environment and collaboration to enhance the student health and safety at all levels, and to establish safety processes, procedures, and protocols, and training of staff and students.
Who was that?
Thank you, Mr. Fitch.
Who was that?
Did you ask a question, Ms. Green? Okay. Next, we have our superintendent's update, Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'll try to give you a brief update. I don't have 62 minutes worth of updates today, but I do have a few that need to give to you this evening. First, I just want to make you aware and put on everybody's radar the Senior Scholars Banquet is held Wednesday, May the 11th. That is the, I guess, the premier event of the Educational Foundation, where we recognize students with over a 4.0. It's a great event. I hope you've got that on your calendar. Look forward to celebrate excellence. This event really goes hand in hand with the board's vision and mission and slogan of cultivating excellence. We have the opportunity to reward and recognize not only the students, but those families that have cultivated excellence in their career. The second part of the update is you have a resolution proposal that you've had in your packet. This resolution proposal is in conjunction with the Educational Foundation to be recognized at the scholarship banquet that night, the James Reed Sonny Huggins resolution. Many of you know Mr. Huggins, and I'm not going to read the entire resolution to you, but just want to highlight a few things. Obviously, that you know, Cleveland County Schools Educational Foundation was created in 1986 to supplement advanced services provided to the community by Cleveland County Schools. James Reed Sonny Huggins was a valuable member of the Educational Foundation's Board of Directors. He faithfully served the Educational Foundation and championed the Foundation's effort as a charter member of the organization. His efforts reflected the love and belief in being involved in his community, and passed this love to his children, grandchildren, and touched all the lives that he came in contact with. He's born in a family of educators. His grandfather was first principal of Bowling Springs High School, and that later became Gardner-Webb University. His father served as school principal and taught at Crest High School. You see some things about Mr. Huggins and his family, and the Educational Foundation's Board of Directors has recommended doing a joint resolution in honor of Mr. Huggins, and so we bring that to the board tonight for your consideration.
Any questions on the resolution? I think it's well deserved. Do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Second by Mr. Blanton. Any discussion? Those in favor of the resolution, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Dr. Fisher.
A little information about the reorganization in Shelby zones tonight. Initial staffing placements, I can't talk and read tonight, have been made. Ms. Wampler and her human resources staff have been working hard on that. Administrative recommendations will be soon. Certified and classified positions are available in the Shelby attendance zone and throughout the district. We do have vacancies for folks to apply. Those have been posted online. So we encourage people that want to get into education and want to be a part of Team Cleveland County Schools to apply. The new Shelby Elementary transition team met last week. We had a wonderful meeting of about 20 folks. The next meeting is scheduled for the last week of April as we begin looking at transitions. Had lots of good questions from staff members, from parents, from all of our schools entire to Shelby's home. Meetings with community groups, I believe that was referenced earlier tonight, are ongoing, and future meetings will be scheduled after spring break. So look to continue to engage in conversations with our community, with our stakeholders, to make sure that we're creating in the environments that we want to create, not only in our schools, but throughout our community. So again, we appreciate the work of committee members stepping forward and want to be a part of the partnership with Cleveland County Schools, and we look forward to future meetings that we'll be announcing soon. The school name selection committee was also referenced in the minutes of our work session. That recommendation will be made to the board by the May 2020 meeting. I believe that date is May the 11th. I think that board meeting date. I think it's May 9th is that Monday meeting. We'll make that recommendation at that meeting. The new Shelby Elementary facility upgrades will begin next week. I know that school is not out for the summer next week, but we do have spring break next week, and we are going ahead and getting ahead with some renovations there at that new Shelby Elementary. A portion of the school is scheduled to be painting during this time, with the remainder of the school scheduled to be painting over the summer. Obviously, looking ahead and looking at the timetable, we need to go ahead and get some of that going. So those are just some of the text updates that are going on. I want to highlight just some, again, conversations about the Shelby attendance zone. The maps you see tonight have been tweaked, and we believe, and we're looking at the numbers, really represent where we need to be from a student population. These are the proposed new zones. If you look at the pink, that is the Jefferson attendance zone. The green will be the new Shelby Elementary attendance zone, and the yellow is the James Love attendance zone. After tonight, these will be posted on board docs and on our website for folks to look. As we've worked through K-Day with our students, we've rolled out these districts into there. Formally, presentation will be made in May for a final approval by the board, but I wanted to go ahead and get these out, let you get a look at those. Our transportation staff, human resources, and operations staff have been working hard on that, and we feel good about the recommendations as presented here, but we'll get formal approval in May. Just so you know, with that, students that are currently out of school, we don't have many of these, but the students that are currently at a school and their zones change and they want to stay at that school, they will be guaranteed an opportunity to stay at that school and finish their education career at that school. This is the new Shelby Elementary proposed. The other ones in these charts maps are the same. They're just highlighted into different colors where you can focus on the new Shelby Elementary, the new James Love, and the new Jefferson. And again, those will be placed on our website. They're on board docs, but we'll also place it on the website so that they're easy to find and locate for folks to look at that. If you have any questions as you look through those, feel free to let me know. Contact me, contact David Bless. We can answer any questions that you may have regarding these proposed maps. And the final thing, Mr. Chairman, as far as
has anything been brought up about possibly on the name?
Mr. Blanton said we are working with the committee, and that recommendation for a name will be presented to the board at the May meeting.
Okay.
The May 9th meeting. I did mention spring break, and it is a great time for spring break. It's been a long haul. When you look back at all the things that our teachers and our staff have done throughout this school year, spring break begins Friday. School is closed for students and staff this coming Friday for Good Friday. So I know our students and staff are counting down 3 school days left until we have a break. I can tell you that break is needed by all, probably me included, but it'll be a good time to refresh and get a little bit of a breath of fresh air prior to completing the school year. School resumes for students and staff on Monday, April 25th, and make sure we got there. It's a good long spring break at Friday, and students have the entire next week off. We'll still have some things going on around our campuses, but school will be closed for students and staff that week. COVID presence in our schools continues to decrease. It's a good news. So typically, we've had COVID update during this time, and COVID across our country and in our state and our community is decreased, and we're still seeing that decrease in our schools. So, with that decrease in COVID, we've continued to have an increased focus on finishing the school year with strong academic emphasis and wraparound supports for our students and staff. And we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of our students, both academically, social, emotionally, and everything that's going on with students and staff. When we come back from spring break, we'll have about 6 weeks left of school. In that time, the last week of April and May will go quick. Next thing you know, we'll be talking about end of grade EOC exams, high school graduations, end of the year things. So I know that's a busy time. You have in some of your packets information, been given a graduation schedule. Over the next couple of weeks, please review that. If there are graduation events that you want to attend, make sure you let me know. You can go into that Google Doc and put your name in that, or if you'll let me know, I can enter that for you. And that just helps us and the principals know that at graduation at Burns High School, what board members are going to be there. That way they can plan appropriately. So again, not a rush to do that, but as you make your plans for the end of the year, please look at that. I draw your attention to some of our earlier graduations, whether it's the graduation at North Shelby, Turning Point graduation, early college graduation. Some of those graduations we tend to focus on our 4 traditional schools, but we do have 5 school graduations that are ongoing there at the end of the year. So busy time there at the end of the year. And then board action is still needed on mask based according to general statute. So we will need, Mr. Chairman, a vote on mask in schools.
I make a motion that we leave it optional.
All right, motion by Mr. Blanton. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Fitch. So that will maintain our optional mask policy. Any questions or discussion? Those in favor, if you would raise your hand. And that carries 9-0.
Mr. Queen, as administrative staff, we appreciate the board's continued support as we finalize the school year. It's been an interesting over 2 years as we've transitioned through this, but we feel Cleveland County Schools is in a good place and done a good job with the work that we've done in our schools, and we appreciate the board's support.
Thank you. Next is board member comments. Mr. Fitch, I'll start on your side. Mr. Hunt. Mr. Glover.
Yeah, I hope everybody enjoys spring break. I would like to just make one comment. Mr. Blanton mentioned with the Marion neighborhoods. They are correct. Myself, Mr. Queen, and Dr. Fisher met with them. I reached out, or I had some communications with him. Dr. Fisher, I called him and asked him if there's a possibility that some of us could meet and just give them some information. Okay, and that's what happened.
Why wasn't the rest of the board notified about it?
That's not my responsibility as a board member to call everybody else. Okay, should we have done that? You're probably right. You might be right. It didn't happen, and that's all I can say. But there's some good. I think it was a good opportunity for some people in that neighborhood to hear from our superintendent.
No doubt in my mind.
Get some stats and some information. As you know, you got to be very careful when you have meetings. You can't have the whole board there,
I understand.
or it's going to be a meeting. So I think there's some future communications that they have the opportunity that neighborhood and maybe the ground neighborhood have the opportunity to meet and give some more information to them. But I thought it was a very positive meeting, and I appreciate Mr. Queen and Dr. Fisher having the opportunity for us to sit down and talk to them. Thank you.
Mr. Humphries?
Thank you. So again, this week, or this month rather, I'd like to share some great experiences I've had with the students and some of the schools. Back last Thursday, I had the opportunity to interview 14 or be involved in the interviews for 14 students at Shelby High School for the Prize Scholarship. I can't say enough good things about those students. I'd give anything if there'd have been enough money to give 14 scholarships, because every one of those students was very deserving. Also last Thursday, I went to Washington Elementary for the Duke Energy Science Night. There was 275 people in attendance at that. Mr. Hall and Ms. Kimman, the AIG teacher, did a tremendous job putting that together. And again, if y'all ever get a chance to go to one of those, please do. You don't want to play Am I Smarter Than a Fifth Grader with the students that was running those stations, because you're going to get your feelings hurt. I'm telling you, they were talking about high school chemistry stuff and they're fifth graders. On Friday, I attended the Title I Parent Advisory Council meeting. Again, a great meeting. I don't know exactly how many parents was there, Dr. Fisher. The room, SD1 was full. So that was a great opportunity to hear the parents' concerns. Saturday, this past Saturday, April the 9th, I went to the All-County Honors Band. Again, you know, we've got so many kids doing amazing things in this school system. Those are difficult pieces of music that brought in some great clinicians to lead that. So, and wanted to point this out, the next board meeting on May the 9th, we will be honoring the accomplishments of our fine arts students. We recognize some tonight, and that's the next meeting. I think the recognition is going to be basically focused on the fine arts. Is that correct? Okay. And lastly, at our last meeting, Mr. Glover kind of challenged us all for the Education Foundation, the scholarships. And I took him up on that challenge. So I'd like to issue one of my own now. Now the Education Foundation has a separate account set up for the Partners Aligned for Literacy Success. So I was the first person that made a donation to that, and I would challenge all the other board members to do the same. So that's going to be a tremendous program for our school system. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Short?
Just a couple things, and the gentleman, I forgot your name, and the lady, I forgot your name, but you two speaking generated this in my head. First of all, I have a good friend who has a son who has autism that I spend a lot of time with. I get it. But I just want to share some stuff that I've said in the work session. I just want to stay it here, sometimes how we're handicapped. I chair the finance committee, and we decided we wanted to give the bus drivers a raise, $1 raise. We had a bus driver who had been driving for 20-something years. We couldn't give him a raise because the state mandates how much we can pay bus drivers. A lot of people don't know that. The state mandates how much we can pay a substitute teacher. The state and feds have a lot to do with our nutritional program, because I retired a year ago from law enforcement. I was over the school resource officer, and I actually spent 4 years in a school. And I was sitting there one day, and I watched them take the trays. At the end of the day, lunch was done, and they just started dumping all this food in the trash can. That upset me. I said, we got so many hungry people out here. Why are we throwing food away? We got agriculture. We got hog farmers that come and get this. Well, guess what? The feds mandate that at the end of the day, we got to throw all that food away. So I say all this to say, you know, a lot of stuff we get blamed for, rightfully so, but a lot of things we don't have a lot of control over. I ate the lunches. Are they the best in the world? No, but that picture doesn't do it justice. I follow it on Facebook too. It doesn't do it justice. Is that other one that's out there really want to agree? I don't know. But, you know, I just say all that to say, you know, if people would really research and find what we don't set the standard course of study. The state does that. But I think a lot of people think we as a school board set up the standard course of study, what we have to teach our kids. We don't do that. It's the state. But you two come in and speak, and thank you for coming. And I just want to say another thing. I would encourage you to get with the sheriff Kings Mountain Police, Shelby Police, and Bowling Springs Police, because the school resource officers don't work for us. I know a lot of people think they do and think we can do this. No, they work in our schools for their respective law enforcement agency. So that just jarred me to thinking about that. So I would encourage you to speak with those heads too. That's all I'd say.
Mr. Blunt?
Yes. Well, I'm going to go back to the letter. I have a lot of calls and a lot of complaints. And I promise here tonight, and if anybody says that I've ever said any different, I would like them to respond to every school board member that I always, anybody that calls me with a complaint and the nature of the complaint, I will forward them to go through the chain of command. The teacher, the principal, and to Mr. Borders here. And I think he will verify that, because I try to tell most everybody that calls me, you have to go through the chain of command. I don't take this under my own belt. I tell them they have to go through the chain of command, and then after, if they're not satisfied there, then they go, I pass them on to Dr. Fisher. If they're not satisfied there, they go back to Dr. Fisher when they call me back, and that happens very few times. Very few times this happens. Then they can appeal it to the board. And that's the way I handle things. But I've been accused of taking things in my own hands. I don't do that. But I'm going to know both sides of the story when I vote. And that's the way I vote. So I hope everybody understands that. My phone is on 24 hours a day. If you don't get me the first time, it might be because I'm on the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning. Feel free to call me back at 4. I will get you called back, and I will guide you in the direction that you need to go. That it goes with our staff. That goes with our leaders. That goes with our children. That goes with everybody. I'm here for y'all, and I always will be. The ones that's doing wrong, I'm not for you. I'll tell you up front, I'm not ashamed. And I hope the best takes place at Marion. But I'll never stand for us removing Marion, of Graham, because Graham is a fine piece of property that if we ever need a new school, it will be ideal. Whether it's in the Crest zone or in the Shelby zone, either one, because it's central located. I'm here for what's the best, and yes, we can check with counties, districts right here in North Carolina. Don't have to go to South Carolina and look at food. You can go to Burke, look at the menus. I feel that we can do better. I hope that we'll look. Y'all have all heard me mention this before. I want our children to have the best and the best education that we can possibly give them. So I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Ms. Green? Mr. Taylor? I'd like to end on I also had the opportunity to interview some students for a scholarship at Shelby High School. Just like Mr. Humphreys, they are very impressive students. We had one student that was going to Cleveland Community College to study art, one that's going to Gardner-Webb to study nursing, and one going to the community college for welding. It was amazing at the difference between the students. One young lady had a 4-point plus GPA. She worked 32 hours a week. She had taken CCP courses. She's going to be able to enter Gardner-Webb as a junior, and did all of that in high school without the best support for her. So I commend those students, all our students, those 3, the 14 that Mr. Humphreys got to meet, and we've got some great students in Cleveland County Schools. So with that, Mr. Shores, you have a motion for a closed session.
Yes, sir. pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A, subsection 3 and 6, go into closed session to consult with the attorney and discuss a personnel matter.
All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second? Second by Mr. Fitch. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. Do we have a motion to re-enter open session?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Shores.
Second.
Second by Mr. Hunt. Those in favor, if you'd raise your hand. That carries 9-0. During closed session, the board discussed two principal appointments recommended by Dr. Fisher. He's going to present those shortly, and there was no update from the attorney. Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'd like to make two personnel recommendations to you tonight. First will be the promotion of Jennifer Aberly to the position of principal at Burns High School. Currently, Jennifer is the Director of Professional Development for the district, but more importantly, she's serving as interim principal at Burns High School. And so we recommend Ms. Aberly remove that interim tag and become full-time principal at Burns High School, and that would take effect immediately. The second recommendation is promotion of Heather Pagan to principal at the new Shelby Elementary School. Ms. Pagan has served principal in this district before. She's currently as the Title II Instructional Support Coordinator, and this would be effective July 1, 2022. These recommendations come as a part of our ongoing human resources effort to make sure that we're cultivating excellence in all that we do. We will have additional recommendations coming to you in the May board meeting, but for April, we have those two personnel recommendations. Be glad to try to answer any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Fisher?
I'll make a motion that we accept.
All right, motion by Mr. Blanton to accept the recommendations. All right. Mr. Fitch, you get it. Those in favor of the two principal promotions as recommended by the superintendent, if you'd raise your hand. And that carries 9-0. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion too.
I think everybody made the motion at the same time, so we'll call it. Thank you, folks.